afternoon, everybody. Appreciate the ability to be here. This is not only a great conference, but it's great for me to talk to you because I'm usually the gatekeeper between our two industries of how do you get insurance and financial services to our ride-sharing community. I'm usually the touch point, so this is extremely relevant. Beyond that, born in Dallas, so cool to be home. And I think we got to take 1 second here to recognize how amazing this carpet is. I mean, pretty much everything Texas in one place. You got belt buckles, hats, boots, you name it. That's extraordinary. So what I was hoping to do today is kind of take you through a little bit of how do you partner with online tech platforms. The world's very different this day. The on-demand economy has pretty much made it possible to push a button and get anything in seconds. And it's changing how we interact daily. So let's kind of move forward here. I got to start first with a little bit of taxonomy. Let's talk about what the on-demand economy is. We'll get a little verbiage in there. Then I'll kind of talk to you how do you underwrite it? How do you look at it to evaluate the risk? How can insurers adapt to it? And then how do you partner with us? So the first is, what is the on-demand economy? The on-demand economy is basically anything where you can push a button and get connected to a service provider almost instantaneously. You're thinking about transactions that are formulated in seconds and the actual service generally provided within 30 minutes or so. There are other terms that I think are out there a lot used in conjunction that are similar, the gig economy and also the sharing economy. So all of these things are part of the on-demand economy. The sharing economy is just where someone's using a personal asset within the on-demand economy. So think of your car in ride sharing or your home with Airbnb. The gig economy then is the service provider side. It's how can I work when I want, how I want, when I want. So it's being able to work for 1 minute, being able to work for 1 hour, being able to work for 1 week. It's really the ability to earn in a way that we've never had this flexibility before in the world. So there are so many examples of this stuff today. It's crazy. I live in San Francisco myself, so I see every one of these that comes out there first. And I can give you a normal week in the life of Curtis is I get back usually from being on the road on Thursday. The first thing I do is I push a button and I get my dry cleaning picked up. Then usually on Saturday morning, I push a button and I get Instacart to bring me my groceries. Sunday morning, maybe a little tired, don't want to walk the dog, push a button, I get Wag to come, pick up the dog, walk it around the block. Work in the morning, taking a lift, pushing a button, get in the car. And I hope all of you are going to take a lift back to Dallas Airport after the conference as well. But these examples go on and on and on. Some of them don't even make sense. I've even seen there's dog sharing. You can push a button and borrow someone else's dog for a day. But I think what's notable about this is these are like really relevant consumer brands. What struck me working at both Lyft and previously at Uber is how passionate the users are in the communities of these things. These are consumer brands like Coca-Cola, like Pepsi, like McDonald's. People identify with them and they take them very, very seriously because it's changing their life. It's something that is very high touch. A lot of the on-demand platforms, people are using them, if not daily, very frequently. So it has a real identity with the customer that's different from a lot of other B2B type stuff. So when you're in a financial service provider, you have to think about certainly you're used to your brand identifying with the end user, the consumer, but here they're probably more aligned with identifying with the on-demand platform. So it's a little bit different, and you got to keep that in mind. So key characteristics of the on-demand economy. Number one is it's technology enabled. I mean, the thing that makes it work, hands down, is the phone. It's the addition of having a Wi-Fi, LTE connection, being able to upload, download apps, and make these things happen. That's what did it. Second, the transaction's instantaneous. So you literally push the button and something's dispatched to you almost immediately. That's very different than most transactions if you think about it. This is a Even the sign-up flow might only take a few clicks. So it's very quick, very tech forward. You receive the goods or services in minutes, so this isn't like, book an appointment for a week from now. You're usually getting it almost instantaneously. I think some of the differences might be home sharing or something like that. You might book that farther out, but most things are pretty instantaneous. Generally, the service is provided by a gig worker, but that's not always the case. So if I'm using my home, for instance, I'm renting that out to make some revenue, maybe at a shorter time. Scale, I think, is the next big thing. When you deal with large platforms, understand that they grow very fast and they have millions of users, the successful ones. And then I think the two things that are really important on both sides of the marketplace is for the buyer, convenience. It's that pushing a button and getting that service. I don't have to think about, having to let the dog out. Cash flow is the thing that's most important to the provider. The ability to earn money quickly, when you want, how you want, 1 hour, 2 hours, and be able to get that money quickly to do something with it. So those are kind of key characteristics. Move on to underwriting differences. So how do you look at risk in the sharing economy? Very different from how you would underwrite an individual in a personal lines context. Very different from how you would underwrite a kind of old-fashioned company, if you will. So first is there's a mixture of both commercial and personal activity happening here. So you've got to use your chops on both sides. You need to use commercial underwriting techniques. So looking at large risk, looking at unique risk, really understanding it well. But you also have to use personal lines capabilities, that brand touch, that customer service level. Is there a financial service provider? Is there an agent? Is there someone that can answer the questions in real time of these millions of people? There are claims agents that are available around the clock. So it's different. You have to book underwrite it too. The way to get to these consumers is often going to be through the platform. So you're not going to be able to underwrite each individual. You have to try to underwrite what the entire universe of the customers looks like. So it is a data exercise. It's an actuarial exercise. It takes some actual studying. It needs to be generally usage-based because the on-demand economy is whatever the participants in it want it to be, whether one transaction or hundreds. The products that are offered have to be able to scale with that and be that flexible. I need something that provides the service when I'm engaged in this activity and want it, but I don't want to pay for it when I'm not using it. And so you have to appeal to both the person that does this for an hour a week, both the person that does this for 40 hours a week. Both have a need, but products traditionally haven't been designed that way. So a little bit different. The flexible term comes with that. Like I need things for my riders and drivers that work with them when they're riding and driving, and it can turn off when they're not riding and driving. So things that are like this lasts for a year, this lasts for 2 years, 6 months is not always very attractive to them. Risk fluctuates over time. There's seasonality. We have more teachers that drive during the summer than do during the winter, obviously, when they're off of prime time teaching, if you will, the summer break. But also, weather and things like that can have an impact. And when you're dealing with things at scale, things can move. API integration, I call it, as being really important. If you're going to work with a tech company, you got to be able to integrate with a tech company. You have to actually be able to transmit data back and forth in a secure way, quick. And it's amazingly interesting to me of how many companies just can't do this. And so it's like a self-reflective question of, if you want to go after this type of opportunity, have you actually talked to your IT department and confirmed that you can do this? It's probably like a gating issue. Next is a sophisticated purchaser on my side. So it's not your typical negotiation where you say, I have this product, take it or leave it. I'm probably going to say, I'm going to leave that. No, thank you. Often what I'm more interested in is partnering with the financial service provider to create something bespoke that really solves a neat need, something new, something unique. And I have the staff, and other companies like Lyft have them too. So I have actuaries on hand, I have regulatory attorneys in the financial services area, I have dedicated engineers, product managers. So we're able to actually partner effectively, and I think it's trying to leverage that actually can help your companies as you're looking to create new products. Instead of just throwing spaghetti at a wall and coming into the office, my office, saying, does this work? Why not actually work to create something that you know will? We can help. So then lastly, it's a consumer brand. So people, while they're engaged in something that might not typically fit in your commercial or personal world, are definitely going to expect service that has both a personal touch on the claim side and also on the purchase side, often where there's questions. So how can insurers adapt? Well, I can tell you this. So it's just St. Patrick's Day. It was last weekend. I thought I would put up a picture of the door of reconciliation, and I'll save you a long history trip and just kind of summate it like this. 2 Irish families were really pissed off at each other and started fighting each other. One family chased the other family into a church, at which point they both kind of said, this is getting out of hand. A lot of people are dying. I'm not enjoying this anymore. So the one guy outside the church said, I'm done, I'll let you go. The guy inside the church said, I don't trust you, I don't believe you. So where they got to it was they decided to cut a plank out of the door and have one person reach through to shake hands. And they said, if you're willing to chance your arm to come through here and shake on it, I'll call it off. So that's how the door got put it. And I bring this out because I have visited so many banks and insurers, and it's astonishing to me how the head of personal lines and the head of commercial lines have often not even met each other. Or if they have never worked with each other. And I think that this is poignant and useful here because to successfully partner with a tech platform in the on-demand economy, you have to leverage both sides of the house at the company. You're gonna need aspects of your personal lines, your agents force, your claims force, your service provider, customer service. You're gonna need aspects of your commercial side, your underwriting, your capital, everything like that. So, gonna keep that up. So next, bring your product team when you come to visit. We don't necessarily we're not opposed to sales staff. Like, don't get me wrong, that's not the goal, but it doesn't get you to where you want to go. We actually want to meet your product folk. Bring actuaries, bring attorneys, bring claims folk, bring your product manager, bring your engineer so they can hang out with our engineer. Like, that's the companies that figure that out are the ones that are successful. It doesn't work so good when you just stick a program manager in front of it and give us a single point. I mean, that's nice to have that, but we're going to want to get granular with each of these professions along the way and get to know those folks if we're going to partner together. Forget traditions is next. So traditions are fun. The Macarena is a good time. That could happen later tonight, maybe, I don't know. But it's a stupid dance at the end of the day. And it really shouldn't be illustrative or anything. And I think the problem with insurance specifically is there's a lot of traditions. You'll hear attorneys often say, no, we can't do that. And I'm not against following rules. I'm a rule follower. I'm a believer in that. But I am a person that wants to understand the rules. And it's astonishing how often someone can't actually explain why the company's doing something. And I think part of that is the reality that so many of these products were actually created in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and we've had a couple generations of staff that have just blindly continued to follow how that product was designed back at a different time. That's not to say that that's always the case, but I think you should always approach it from first principles. What's right for this transaction, what makes sense for this consumer, what makes sense for this program. So you got to get comfortable with that. The contract's going to be unique. There's no precedent for it. You're not going to be able to call outside counsel and get something really easily done. You're going to have to actually dig in here and do something. The timeline's fast. My company moves at the speed of light. I wake up every day to, we need this done, and it's usually like by lunch. So, months and months and months isn't gonna work. You're gonna need a new process. We're gonna, just like we've disrupted the world of transportation, we're gonna disrupt your compliance and procurement departments as you think of how do you get through and build something. It's not to say that we don't wanna be cautious, we do, but with speed and just new innovation, it's gonna be a little bit different. And 10 years of data, haha. Look, we haven't existed for 10 years. So you're gonna have to get used with taking what is available, often in a shorter period of time, but a larger volume of data, and be able to see, will that get me to a place where I can underwrite a risk specifically, I can design a product that meets the needs specifically. And that's not what financial service providers are used to doing. They're used to having a longer history. So this is something that can be challenging. Next is be practical. I put Warren Buffett up here because I think he has a great reputation as being one of the most practical and successful investors of all time. So not looking for products with useless bells and whistles. I've seen like crazy insurance products that have coverage for stamps, gold bullion, 8-track tapes. I don't know how many of you still have an 8-track player, but I don't need protection for that. I need like at Lyft, I need protection for cars. I need protection for people when they get injured. I need things like that, just the basics. Next, if the purchase is going to be by the individual versus the platform, the product has got to be cash flow friendly. So it has to be able to be almost transaction-based purchase. Because that person may work, like I said, for 40 hours. They may work for 1 hour. They may work intermittently this month, not next month. So it needs to be something that fits and works with their cash flow, money when they have it, when they're doing this. Payment plans, upfront purchase of a whole year is not generally very popular, and those products don't tend to sell well. Next is simple and elegant. Like I said, if it's too complicated, I can't explain it to the user base, and usually you can't either. So it has to be really, really simple. Like if I can't draw it out into a cartoon format or post a 30-second YouTube video, we've probably failed. And then lastly, do what you're good at. So I always tell insurance providers, like, I'm a tech company. Let me do tech. I am pretty damn good at tech. And you're an insurance company. You're pretty darn good at protection. So like an ideal partnership is I buy something from you, and Lyft is perceived as safer because we partnered with a leading safety brand, and you want to be seen as innovative. Great, let us help you do that, and you'll be seen as now tech forward, having worked with us, but you've got to be digging at what you're good at. And I say this because a lot of, and this isn't universally true, but there are a lot of like innovation labs in companies, and I rarely see something innovative come out of it. And it's not to say that you shouldn't do that, but ask yourself, are we actually good at that? Have we innovated? Have we put anything out there that has been productive? If the answer is yes, that's good. But do you have the right environment for it? I mean, my favorite example, I usually, when I go to a partner company, is the test of how hard is it to log into the internet at the place I'm visiting. If I have to get 10 people to contact facility services, that then gets me a long 16-digit code to log on to the guest Wi-Fi, and then I have 7 more clicks, it usually tells me that nothing innovative is happening. Otherwise, you would have fixed your own internet already. And it's not to say that it can't be done in a very secure way, because it can. It's just chosen not to. If I see, innovation culture has to have space to be creative. It has to have space to use the type of laptop you want, work the hours that you want to do it. So just think to yourself, do you really have the environment, the investment to do that? If not, that's okay. We can, again, help you with that. We have product teams that can partner with you. And there are things that you're good at. You have experience in how these things will play out over time, and that's useful too. Adopt some tech culture. So I'm not telling you to redesign your companies, but I can tell you, at least on project teams, how you might be more successful. I think the first is smaller, empowered teams. Tech companies like Lyft are very horizontal and fairly flat. So we're used to getting to decision makers every day in our company. And that doesn't matter what employee you are, you may have an interaction with the CEO and you may work with them to make a decision that day. So if you're gonna partner with us, we need the same kind of feeling. We need actually team members in your team that are decision makers. That's who we wanna work with. If everything has to go back up the chain, it's a nightmare. And I can tell you when I was at Uber, it was especially a nightmare when you're working internationally. Because between Paris and San Francisco, there's really only like 4 hours a day that are good that overlap. So if I every day I only get 4 hours and you've got to run up and down a decision-making tree, we're adding days and days and days of delay. Second, unleash the geeks. Like, I am a big fan of engineers and actuaries. I think they're like the David Bowies of my world. I think they're rock stars. If you're an FCAS, you're a badass, okay? And I say that because they have incredible insights that so many times get lost and don't get communicated upwards and make it to executive management. Like, bring the most knowledgeable person to the table. Don't bring me the most unknowledgeable person that happens to manage the most knowledgeable person. That's not a good way to collaborate. If you have the people that can really geek out on something on both sides together and they're empowered, you'll get to great solutions. Next is the red tape real? So it's not to say that we shouldn't have red tape, but it's always to ask ourselves, if there's friction in the transaction, why does it exist? And is there a better way to do it, yes or no? And if the answer is no, that's fine, but let's just not blindly accept the tradition again. Let's create a beautiful consumer experience. And then last, lead from the front. Like I said, come out and visit. Come to the office. Be there in person with us. So, like, we really like to do business in person. And I travel all over to do that, to visit your companies. And I think that's tech culture. Is we're always used to having our executives in the trenches at the customer support center, picking up the phones. It's the old mantra of, if you work at McDonald's, everyone has to work the fryer. Same kind of thing in the tech world. So partnerships that work. Partnerships that work, I think Coke and McDonald's is probably the most iconic one. There's never been a written contract. It doesn't exist. There's no contract for Coke to provide McDonald's delicious, sparkly water. But you have all come to believe it there. And they reinforce each other, right? So you're eating salty food, you need something cold and refreshing. And it goes a two-way street. So with platforms, you have to look for the same kind of synergy. So, like, you're taking a ride home at nighttime, you've been out, you're probably hungry. Taco Bell, who doesn't like tacos? So if I can push a button and get a ride and also go through the drive-thru on my way home and get a taco, that's pretty awesome. But I think partnerships have to be even deeper than that. When I work with insurance companies, I'm trying to think, how can we make this really a two-way street? How can I do something for you and you also do something for me? So for branding, it's easy. I truly believe that Lyft is the safest platform out there, and I want to keep that, and I want to partner with service providers that reinforce that. You want to be seen as tech and innovative, and I get that. That makes sense. But just also other little things. If I'm buying an insurance product, let's say to protect the cars on the road, a way to make that purchase better is if you also would buy Lyft credits, so when people have an accident, instead of maybe a rental car, maybe they can push a button and get a lift. We can do other things like if we have philanthropic clauses that align, we can both partner in those. Really kind of make the partnership sticky, if you will. I like to have things going both ways. So it's not just a take, it's a give and take. So I will try to wrap this up under time, which is a rare feat for me, but I want to give you a couple great tips to leave with. So one, partnerships have to be a give and take. If it's a take it or leave it, or only you buying something, I'm not interested. I did not grow up and have aspirations of running a procurement department. It's boring. Transparency. You have to be honest about what you can and can't do. So it's okay to ask for data if you have a reason for it. We'll be good on that, but you also have to talk about your DNA, your makeup. what is your actual expense ratio? Is it different now when it's applied to a platform where I'm doing the marketing for you, I'm providing the access point on demand? Maybe it's less. You need to be, transparent about what your actual cost structure is, how you work. Next, you should leverage your agent and claims force. I think, having been in the industry myself a long time, if we were to rewind 10 years ago, everyone said, the agent's gonna disappear, claims will be automated. Those are both false. They exist at great length. And the companies that have the highest rating invest in those areas. And those are very relevant to both our riders and drivers. They want to reach out to an expert. They want to know things when they have questions. When something goes wrong, they want to know that there's a human there that's advocating for them along the way. So these can be an advantage for you and something that you can really leverage. Next, have a long-term view. Understand that a lot of these platforms are in their infancy. They've only operated for a few years. There's going to be learning experiences on both sides. There's going to be product shifts. There's going to be an ebb and flow, but being a partner early on and being someone that we trust will give you a long-term relationship that you're really after. So don't make erratic changes just because something in year one didn't work out perfectly as planned. Account for it, pivot a little bit, and work on getting it perfect. And lastly, please send decision makers. When you want to come in the door and you want to partner, send someone that's actually empowered to make a difference, to make a decision, and I can promise you we'll move mountains together. So that's my presentation. I'm minutes on time, and you can take advantage of this amazing carpet for the rest of it. See ya.